Okay, Carnage was updated in the most recent May Balance Pass. I've played 10 games with Carnage, and I'm going to tell you what I think of this model. So let's talk about why Carnage needed these changes in the first place, why he didn't see play, and why AMG and the community wanted to see him buffed. Carnage, first of all, got bullied really, really hard by both control effects and non-physical damage. So it was really easy to displace him. He does a walk and a 4-die attack, or a walk and a 5-die attack, and that's kind of all he does. And then non-physical attacks could really eat Carnage's hit points very, very quickly and make it really difficult for him to impact the game. He also has no way to interact with the game other than killing people. Specifically, the secure game, he can't move people off the points. He has access to a tactics card that costs 4, and everybody who's played 5-die attack characters knows how hard it is to get access to 4 power. They can move people off points and let them make an attack, but it's often just not enough. He can give opponents easy access to power, so there's this aspect of Marvel where you make attacks, you have a big swing, a big spike attack, and then you have your whole kit is unlocked, allowing you to do more things. So you get a little bit lucky, and it can create a lot of advantage for you. And he was an easy door and an easy way to get into that. He didn't often kill things in his own weight class. He would often lose 1v1s with other powerful 4 threats. And then his kit was really clunky because of Paint the Town Red requiring you to have the power in the bank before the attack that killed the character gave you power. So it meant that often that Carnage either had to have 3 power in the bank and kill you with a 5-die attack, or have 5 power in the bank to attack you with his 7-die attack. Let's talk about how AMG addressed these changes. There are 3 big changes to Carnage. 1, he got 1 hit point on his front side. 2, Paint the Town Red has a better timing, so you can collect the power from a builder attack and then immediately use it. And then Paint the Town Red now grants 2 extra dice. So instead of making a 5-die attack with Paint the Town Red, you make a 7-die attack with Paint the Town Red. This makes a handful of things a lot better on Carnage. So the 1 hit point in the front means that he doesn't die as much, meaning that he can have a larger blowout if he can trigger Paint the Town Red. It's easier to trigger Paint the Town Red because you have more power access. It's also somewhat unintuitive, but the extra hit point can also kind of grant you more power, because not only do you live through an attack that you might have died to because you have 1 more hit point, but that 1 more hit point is 1 more power as well. On the face of it, this covers a couple of the complaints. His kit is no longer clunky, and he may or may not escape the easy death that a lot of things in his weight class can do, whether or not the extra hit point and the extra damage is enough to turn the corner. So let's talk about whether the damage actually lets him escape things. So first of all, anything that's in his weight class does not reliably kill him. Actually, some of the stuff that's most dangerous to him are actually physical attackers. Stuff like Logan and Nick Fury Jr. Nick Fury Jr. is actually pretty likely to kill him with a full clip. The problem is that there's then grunts within 3 of Carnage, and if he doesn't kill him, Carnage can just do 2 damage to the grunts and full heal. But let's look at some of these examples. So full clip from Nick Fury is 55.9% to do 8 damage to Carnage. That's 4 4-die attacks with 1 reroll on them coming from the grunts, and then 2 7-dice attacks coming out of Nick Fury, which is the most output any 4 threat can do in the entire game. Now, we're attacking Carnage's good defense, so this is probably not an ideal example of going after and having Carnage have a durability problem. But I think it should show you kind of an example of where you can kind of get yourselves in trouble by underestimating just how many hit points 8 hit points is. So let's look at Killmonger doing 2 attacks with no kill count. He is 30% to kill Carnage with the 2 attacks, so it's a 5 and then a 7. If you play Wakanda Forever, that goes up to an 80%er. That's without usurp. So just doing 3 attacks, very likely to kill Carnage. And then if you look at just usurp and you do the 2 attacks, so that's a 7 and then a 9, with Pierce, obviously, because it's these are Killmonger attacks. He's like 67% to kill Carnage, which is like shockingly low. So it's just most of the time, 2 attacks does not, like, it's really hard to get 2 attacks to kill Carnage. You just don't have the sheer pool of dice required to do it with any kind of consistency. Once you get to a 3rd attack, it gets a lot easier. Here's the problem with that. The 2 most played cards in the game are number 1, Brace for Impact, number 2, Sacrifice. These are effectively damage reduction effects or damage redirection effects. It is really hard to kill Carnage when both of these are sitting in the Carnage player's pocket, and can lead to massive blowouts. So you can have a character like Bill, like double punch Carnage and then throw a size 4 building at him, which should reliably kill him, but he can brace the size 4 building. Or like Cable is only like 40% with 2 gunshots in X-Force to kill Carnage before you put the throw on it, and so you can just brace the throw. I can't stress enough that like 8 hit points is absolutely a break point for anything remotely in his weight class to kill him. Now, things that can both try to kill him and control him at the same time, like a Doctor Strange, can do like quite a bit of work because, you know, like he doesn't reliably crack you back with 2 attacks and kill you and then he full heal. The last thing I want to talk about before we get into like my final opinion on here is that 3 big things have changed in the game since Carnage's release, and since most people have given their opinion on Carnage. One is the game is being played wider than ever. We rewind a year ago, the game was very like Thanos and Thor 2 heavy, and played very tall. Played like 3 models was very common. And having a lot of those models being hard to kill initially, you know, like being Hulks or Thanos or whatever, made it really hard to trigger Paint the Town. The game is being played almost always 5 wide or 4 wide, meaning that it is more likely for a thing that Carnage wants to fight to exist on the battlefield, and it's actually quite likely for multiple things that he wants to fight existing on the battlefield at a time. 2, there are more pay-to-flips, and the pay-to-flips are much more palatable to many more factions. How this impacts Carnage is that Carnage has no displacement. He's really bad at playing the King of the Hill style secures, but he's totally comfortable playing the pay-to-flip game, especially on the new shapes where 1 walk, with him being a medium base, medium move, 1 walk likely gets him from 1 secure to the other, letting him make 2 play attempts if he's willing to commit a walk. And sometimes he can paint the town red and also take 2 flip attempts, depending on his positioning. And then lastly, Surprise Webhead has been released, giving Carnage yet more access to not only another attack on his turn, but his friends able to help him out on his turn to help trigger Paint the Town red, whether it's, you know, Goblin coming in, softening something up and putting Incinerate on it, or just other characters being able to trigger things. And there's all these Rube Goldberg builds of spider foes that can like help put incidental chip damage onto a character for Carnage so that Carnage can paint the town red on them. All right, so I played 10 games of Carnage. My record is 8-2 with Carnage. The only 2 games I lost, I don't really think were Carnage's fault. I think they were roster building and play mistake problems, and like one was like kind of dice, but like that happens in Marvel. I essentially only lost games where I played Nebula as my 2 threat, and I was forced to put Nebula on the table because of just the inability to play the scenario when, you know, like I have Nebula who can't really play the scenario, and then Goblin flips, and he can't play the scenario all of a sudden, and I'm like kind of in trouble, and I've like lost a model. Okay, so how did these like 10 games go? I played against X-Force twice, X-Men twice, Convocation twice, Inhumans, Midnight Suns, Thralls, Red Skull 1. So not the widest breadth of teams, but some of these teams, in theory, should stomp Carnage. My losses were to an X-Men Cyclops list and a Convocation list. In these games, so when I first realized that Carnage might actually be quite strong was when I played him into X-Force twice. I just threw him at Cable and he just like won the matchup by just like a well-timed brace or a well-timed sacrifice into having a bunch of power and being able to play cards and make attacks to be able to kill things and trigger Paint the Town Red, full healing, creating extra hit points. In my very first game with him, painted the town red twice, one on each side, for a modest 3 hit points each side. And with just like that simple amount of healing, or just like those small, like, because obviously like Carnage can heal up to 7 in a Paint the Town Red, but just with like less than half that, but triggering it twice means that Carnage goes from being a 15 health model to a 21 health model. And it's just really easy for the healing and the damage to run out of control of your opponent and to play this like catcher's mitt game where like they come into you, you live, you hit them back, you kill them, you full heal. Another place that Carnage shockingly shined was into Convocation. You'd think Convocation, especially with the new post-errata buffs to Convocation, that they would kind of dunk on Carnage a little bit. You know, like it's mystic attacks as far as the eye can see. Every single person attacks Def 1 Carnage. Seems easy. The thing that's unintuitive here is that he also gets to attack their low defense, except on their Ironbound Buck's turn. But also, none of the Convocation models reliably one-round Carnage, especially if you're willing to play Sacrifice, and because they're not backed up by throws. Or if they have throws to back stuff up, they don't have many of them. And the characters that are throwing aren't making mystic attacks, they're their splash characters. On top of that, spider foes are very, very well positioned into Convocation because of the nature of Trap House. Like Convocation's stuff that keeps them safe is their safety bump that they can do with their leadership, but they will not do that when they're going to take a Mysterio Tricks and Traps or an Electro Tricks and Traps or a Goblin Throw. So you can kind of trap them in this situation where you're like, okay, like I'm going to punch you, and if you Tricks and Traps, or if you bump out, you're going to take a Goblin Throw and a Mysterio and a Electro damage. And if you don't bump out, Carnage is going to eat you. And then Carnage might also be able to play Carnage rules and just pull you right back in. So they're very good in Convocation. Similarly with Midnight Suns, who have bump, and when you're like bump charging or bumping in, gives you more opportunities for Tricks and Traps. The Midnight Suns thing's like a little bit sketchier because of all the healing that they can have access to, meaning that your like ticky-tack damage can just be healed back up. But like the last thing about the ticky-tack damage is that the Trap House builds often lack like a hammer to finally nail people down. You're just like tickling everybody and you don't actually manage to kill anything. Carnage is really good at cleaning up damaged models and then gets rewarded really hard when he cleans up a damaged model. Like if Carnage can walk, spend for Sadistic Glee for 2 extra dice, and attack something that's got like 3 hit points on it, that could then give him a full heal and another short move and another 7-die attack, can create a lot of impact. Oddly enough, my Red Skull 1 game was Mephisto-led. I think the only reason to be playing Red Skull 1 right now is to be playing a Mephisto build. Mephisto places himself a lot with Let's Make a Deal, or whatever his teleport thing is called, and Meet My Associate, where he teleports someone to you. Both of those abilities can then trigger Tricks and Traps and cause more punishment, and Carnage can like really pounce on that by, you know, being like, oh, I don't want you to kill Mysterio or Mephisto with this attack, so here's, you know, a durable model, and that durable model takes a couple points of chip and now is well inside being killed by Carnage. So Carnage is like a very spiky model and has absurd best case scenarios. So ignoring for a second his spender of maximum Carnage, he can make 5 attacks on his turn. His 2 actions, he can play Carnage Rules, he can kill something and trigger Paint the Town red, and then he can play Die Spider-Man or Surprise Webhead. So he can do 5 attacks in a single turn, 2 of them being 7 dice attacks, which gives him insane explosive value inside a package that is only 4 threat of committing. Because you're not committing the whole package every single time you activate him. They're levers you get to pull once per game. He can also have really, really wild activations because of Carnage Rules being able to trigger Tricks and Traps and Livewire and Trick or Treat. So opening an activation where Carnage is at range 4 of someone, spends 4 power, pulls someone in, triggers a bunch of stuff, and gets to make a 5-die attack at them and hasn't spent any actions yet, can just create huge, huge swings. I also think that Goblin's leadership it feels really good with Carnage, and we already know that Oscorp, while it can sometimes feel bad when it doesn't come up your way, is mathematically strong. And how Oscorp interacts with Carnage's symbiote ability of essentially anything he attacks is hexed, so it can't explode its crits, means that when he's attacking things with low defense dice but high dice quality, like stuff standing in double bubble, web warriors, things like that, their dice are their max blocks. And then you get to attack one of those blocks. So you're like, I punch Miles, I roll 3 hits. He can't do better than 3 blocks. And then when he does 3 blocks, you get to make him try again and confirm one of his blocks, and you get to maybe get your damage in. But that's not what you're going to be playing against most of the time. Most of the time, you're going to be playing against stuff that blocks 1 or 2. You get to pull one of those key things, get access to extra power, unlock more of Carnage's kit, get him closer to the kill. So I really think if you're going to play Carnage, Goblin is the one that you pair him with. I am known to be a Doc Ock hater, largely because of how Doc Ock interacts with the power mechanic, as giving Doc Ock power beyond 3 doesn't really make him more dangerous to your opponents. So he's kind of a free thing to attack that can't punish you. And his leadership, while good, I really think you need both aspects of the leadership to be triggering for it to really compete with the strength of Oscorp. And with Crimson Dynamo having left the meta and Demons Downtown also having left the meta, things that are like mass shocking you and mass incinerating you are just like really not in the game. And outside of like the Web Warriors all webbed up turn, there's nothing that does like mass slow, and like he's very good in that matchup. But I would lean towards playing Goblin. I've always been a Goblin boy. Another thing about Carnage is that unlike Doc Ock, Carnage does so much with power and can really pull you out of games where you're losing, especially if they handed you priority for a big swing turn and you've managed not to lose the game. Carnage dying and also not being reliably one-rounded by one model can often mean that when he wakes up the following turn is around a bunch of models and on 10 power. Carnage, assuming you don't have access to any of the tactics cards, has exactly enough power to boost a maximum Carnage and pay for Paint the Town. That's exactly 10. Meaning that you can do really, really wild, crazy stuff. And like he can have insanely explosive turns because his spender is the exact same spender as Agent Venom's, except it's an AoE attack and not a beam attack, which means it has lower literal range, but its area of impact is larger. And everyone is already perfectly situated for Lashing Tendrils trigger. So it can potentially do huge amounts of damage. And the natural state in which he is dazed often causes multiple things to be around him. And then when you start to mix in the cards and the reactive Spider Foes powers, you can do these just like crazy Ruberg kills. What other things? Okay. Oh, let's do some piloting recommendations. So when piloting Carnage, you want to make sure that the most important part of your matchup is that it cannot easily displace you or effortlessly displace you. That when they displace you, it has to come with significant cost for them. So avoid things like Doctor Strange. Try not to line up against impact weapons. Stuff like that. Stuff that will easily and effortlessly put you outside of melee or outside of where you want to be. Try to keep sacrifice live. Use your traps to punish anything coming into you. It's not as important to line up against a physical attacker as you might think it is, because you are more durable than you seem. Don't overextend your defensive tech. Do not expend defensive tech unless it will keep you safe. This is things like like Shang-Chi charges you, he's going to 2-tap you. Are you able to, do you have to play sacrifice right now and then he pushes you out of it? Or is he in a position where if he pushes you out of bodyguard, he's not going to be able to kill you? I guess he would, in this case, probably push your bodyguard away, but have multiple bodyguards. Try not to play sacrifice as the first thing you do. Try to play it on the second attack. Be okay taking risks and going for the blowouts. And, you're playing a catcher's mitt style. You want them to commit to you, and then you want to kill them. If they get Carnage before he activates, make sure that you have enough stuff to punish whatever they killed you with, and then use the fact that they probably gave you priority to punish back hard with Carnage. Another important thing is that if Carnage is at full hit points, very rarely is he under direct pressure to activate. If Carnage is your best activation right then and there, it's not always correct to immediately take it, because there's a lot of safety in Carnage's large hit point pool. And you really want him to take a couple damage, get his kit online and going before you commit. If you're playing against Carnage, really do not expend energy trying to kill this guy until he's activated. Expend energy controlling him, but not energy attacking him and damaging him, to turn on his kit and open yourself up to the blowouts. So there's going to be a companion video to this that's going to kind of explain the list that I played here. But here it is up on the screen, and we're going to talk about it shortly in another video about why I made these choices and why these are strong. But specific synergies to call out, obviously Goblin and the tricks and traps stuff. Any of the Bullseye's auto points, when they go after Bullseye as an extract runner and he does a damage or two to them, can bring them inside of Carnage's damage profile of Carnage being able to walk over there and kill them. One of the things that typically you don't do in Marvel Crisis Protocol is really go all in tactics cards wise on a single character. But with Carnage, I think that's a thing you can do, largely because even doing that and planning to play all of your tactics cards to protect Carnage and have the best Carnage time possible, the cards are playable by other foes. So Carnage is a very, very strong character to use Surprise Webhead, but every Spider Foe can use Surprise Webhead, and Carnage attacking to try to paint the town red isn't a requirement of the card. You can also just use it to get a quick kill and then have Carnage activate somewhere else on the table and have just maximum impact. Get those big Siege of Darkness Wakanda Forever turns. It is important that if you are playing Surprise Webhead, that Carnage can only paint the town red during his turn, so you will have to commit to his activation before you play the card. Whereas a lot of times with Surprise Webhead and Wakanda Forever and Siege of Darkness, you play the card, see what happens, and then choose who to activate based on that. That's a little bit of negative synergy with Carnage. Also, Carnage's Sadistic Glee that increases his damage output, or it gives him 2 extra dice, it works on attack actions only. So the upside of this is that when you use it on the spender, it affects every attack of the spender. But the downside is that you can't use it on the tactics cards. So when you use it and then play Surprise Webhead, you don't get the +2 dice right then. You do a 5-die attack, and then the next time you take an action that is an attack, you get it. Same thing with Carnage rules. They can't have Sadistic Glee on it. Custom Upgrades is a card that Carnage uniquely breaks. So often Carnage is in a spot where he's like fighting three models, or there's like three models that reasonably are projecting threat onto Carnage. And you're thinking about playing custom upgrades to give him extra dice against someone. Oftentimes you can pick a character that, like, of those three characters, two of them are going to attack Carnage with energy attacks or mystic attacks anyway, so he's def 1 anyway. So taking -2 defense doesn't matter because he rolls minimum 1 defense die. So putting it on the character that's like physical based can be like, oh, I'm just def 7 physical and I'm still 1/1. And then even when that's not the case and you play it and like they're all physical attackers or whatever, you can be like, well, against this guy I'm 7 dice and he's the one that's probably going to try to kill me, or he's his best first activation and I'm still def 3 against these other nerds. Like, it's probably fine. So he uses that card very, very well, although it is very hard to fit in the 5, because right now most of my games have been Brace Sack as the cards that let you deliver Carnage and kind of just give you a lot of say in whether your foes get to activate. Like, trading those cards for activations is a big part of how you play this bruisery foes style game. You're playing Surprise Webhead always because it's foe's strongest card by a million miles. And then if you have Carnage on the board, you should be playing Carnage rules, leaving you one actual decision maker. If there is a card that is unique to one of your characters, you're probably playing that. You're playing, like, if Mysterio's on the board, you're playing Grand Illusion. If it's Rhino on the board, you're playing Robbery. If you're splashing Shang-Chi, you're playing Chi Mastery. And if you're not doing, like, any special cards, then you can think about playing something else. Sinister Traps is often a good way to, like, break collecting extracts. But I find that just playing custom upgrades and giving you the maximum possible swing available to you is a better use than using Sinister Traps to try to do like 2 or 3 damage to an opponent and then trying to use that to get parity on turn 1. I think it's better just to threaten the midline and play lots of big swing tactics cards. So I'm playing the 2 Spider Foes cards, the Carnage card, and Brace and Sack, unless I have a really strong character card, and then I'm playing the really strong character card instead of playing custom upgrades. All right, so that's Carnage. You guys let me know what you guys think of new Carnage. How wrong am I? I know that the community is pretty meh on Carnage, but you need to put this character on the battlefield. He is very, very strong. And with that, don't forget that fun is a finite resource.